Well, as you can see, it's not always easy to pull together people from different continents, but we seem to have managed it. We had a number of really interesting questions coming through on the webinar. We had some prior as well, and I thought we'd address those in just a moment. But first, we'd like to do a little poll. So we're going to put a question up, and we'll get you to have a look at this question. Let me see. No, well, while we're waiting for the poll to come up, we've got our team working on it. I'm going to just answer one of the questions. The question was, is tourism growing because of the changing trend of people wanting an experience rather than spending money on material things? Well, I think that's really true, and it was answered in a way by a number of the panel. Clearly, today people are looking for authentic experiences when they're travelling. They really do want to get under the skin of a destination, meet local people, and enjoy activities that they feel are really part of the destination. So I think that's certainly true. People are definitely wanting experience. And, you know, small to medium enterprises can really provide that sort of product. It's the right time, actually, for small businesses to work with tour operators to provide these things. And it can be dining, it can be experiences where you're meeting local people that have artisan workshops or perhaps can talk to you about certain aspects of their lives. Those are really interesting, and I know Americans love hearing more about that. So, yeah, authenticity is a big part of it. There were some great comments, I thought, from Jennifer on how things are developing with multi-generational travel. And, of course, that requires some depth of thought as well in terms of how you might provide product and change your offering for them. We had some good questions in about terrorism and about world events and if they're impacting. Clearly, terrorism has impacted things from time to time, but it's becoming increasingly short-lived as an issue at any particular moment. In the UK, it bounced very quickly, and I think people have become a little inured to it all because it's just such a constant thing on television. You know, the cameras of CNN or World News of different broadcasters absolutely follow the events so closely that you'd think the whole place had erupted, and in fact that's not the case, of course, in any situation. So we've seen things change dramatically in terms of the lapse between an event and a recovery. It's become much shorter and doesn't affect as much. What did happen, of course, was the very major situation in North Africa with Egypt and Tunisia and so on. And that actually created a huge internal demand in Europe for people looking for southern Italy or Italy generally, Spain. And so tourism in those countries grew enormously. And one of the other questions was, and it's quite relevant to this, was, can a smaller secondary European city or destination compete with Rome or Barcelona and so on? Well, actually they can, because those places are experiencing a boom in tourism, and to a degree where over-tourism is one of the questions that sometimes pops up, you know, when locals are starting to feel impacted. So I think smaller destinations have a really good opportunity today. It's much easier to reach out. There are many ways of promoting yourselves as a smaller city through media, social media, through reaching out with various online opportunities, either with partner tourist boards or with other organisations that are working wider. Certainly, video plays a big part today. If you can get some video content out there and start sharing that and using Facebook very extensively, you can absolutely build it quite independently. But the US tour operators are looking for other alternate destinations. People do want to go to different places now. It's not just the big cities. So there is an opportunity, most definitely, to grow destinations. If you take southern Italy, that's been a question here. We have one question on Sicily, you know, the perception of Sicily and the opportunities in southern Italy. Two questions, in fact. I know Puglia very well, and I've seen Puglia growing hugely in the last couple of years as a destination, and that's something that Americans are travelling to. I had a personal holiday for a couple of weeks this last summer, and many Americans travelling to Puglia, some independently, some with tour operators. So I think, it is incumbent upon big tour operators to start expanding into these further flung places. And I think as suppliers to American tour operators, you're in a good position if you are in some of these other places. I'm just looking at a question here about the average age of US travellers to Europe, and can we expect the average age to keep dropping? Well, I think that was partially answered as well by some of the panel. Certainly, we will see average age spread, and multi-generational travel, for example, is very great now, as Jennifer again mentioned. Certainly, young people are travelling very extensively, independently, and with youth operators sometimes, brands like Kentucky, Gap, and so on, and G Adventure. And they are enjoying very much getting and experiencing local things. So again, it's this whole business of small to medium-sized enterprises being the perfect opportunity right now to grow. Terry Dale, I think, gave some good hints as to connecting with American tour operators. I don't think you can really avoid being active. You can't passively sit back and wait for American tour operators to find you. You do have to connect with them. And another question was about the importance of training, FAM trips for DMCs and OTAs and so on. Yes, that is right. You do need to join into these opportunities to host American tour operators and be part of the scene, inviting travel agents. And again, as was mentioned earlier, the travel agent fraternity is still very important in America. So letting them come over and try and experience things is really true. Training, you sort of can't replace training when it's a B2B situation, because you may know your product extremely well, but of course the partner you're working with needs to be really informed as well, because they are your mouth, if you like, your voice in the market. So training can't be escaped. And I think a road trip as well in the USA yourself to promote and to be part of the effort to drive European tourism and local tourism within Europe is really important. We had questions about reaching out that I think were pretty well answered by the panel. I had some questions about, for example, there was one, do tour operators look for high definition audiovisual content, aerial audiovisual content from the Mediterranean coastline? And that throws a question up about, can photographers, can companies that have good images or good photography share that with American tour operators and win business? Yeah, for sure. Video today is the main medium, really. You only have to look at YouTube. And I think if you can supply material that tour operators need, but of course it's got to be relevant to them. It's not just any old coastline. It's got to be coastline that they're featuring or planning to feature. But certainly, I know at my old business and with my company now, Vox, which is one of the largest distributors of tourism partner businesses, audio-visual for tour guides and that sort of thing. And we need material like that to support European tourism. So I'm sure that's something that is valuable. I was asked about the Spanish-speaking market developing in the US. This is an interesting one. Of course, there's a very big Hispanic market for travel in the US. Obviously, there is a natural heritage, in a sense, language-wise, to go through Spain. But certainly the US has a very big Hispanic market. And there are operators specializing in it and travel agencies specializing in that market as well. Of course, there is the Mexican connection. Some particularly North Mexican agencies are working in the US and supporting travel. But I have to say, it's a market that's worth looking at. If you can offer Spanish-speaking product, then yes, in America, there is definitely a market for that. Which segment's likely to increase most over the next coming years, and which segments are most likely to use an agent? Well, I can say for sure that the baby boomer market has got another probably 10 years of strong travel to come. And we all know the baby boomer market has a very high disposable income and the time and the imperative, if you like, to travel now. So the baby boomer market isn't going away for a little while, but underneath that, we have seen these other segments coming on very strongly. And in America, the baby boomer certainly will use travel agents. If you're traveling to a foreign country, you want to feel comfortable. You want to feel like you have friends in a foreign land and that you can travel at ease in a foreign place. And the first-hand guidance that agents give is a really important part of making customers feel comfortable. So I think certain segments, this is going to grow rather than diminish. Of course, today people do look online, and very often it's for information, not necessarily to book. But I think across the segments, online, of course, is becoming a really important aspect to selecting a vacation. Let me just look at a couple more questions here that we can throw in. Football, well, there's a good question. People ask about European football in the USA. How famous is it? Are people interested in it? Well, I can tell you for sure that 30%, this is unbelievable, 30% of American households have someone in their household who plays soccer. It's second only to baseball in America. So is there an interest in football, soccer as they call it? Yes, indeed there is. 24 million people play soccer. So I think we can do a lot more with sports that have been considered European sports or non-American sports today, because things have spread worldwide, and we can thank the information age for that for sure. So soccer, yeah, that's a big one. If you have a specialist product, now is the age that you can start to reach out. The tail is longer and you can extend even quite niche products out there, and people are looking for them. So let's not ever sit back and say we shouldn't try something. I think today is the time to try. And tour operators, as I said earlier, really do want to be looking for new product. Public transport and airport transfer tickets, are they still an interesting product? Yes, they are, increasingly so. I think a lot of people do want to travel independently, not all, but many people do want to travel independently, and of course we'll look at public transport and those sort of opportunities. We're developing products at Vox that cater for that too, so it's an interesting area to consider. We have a product called Pop Guide that deals with that, and I think there are a lot of operators specialising in rail or other forms of transport too, so you can get in touch with those, and some of them have got good connections in Europe already. Let me see, I might just be able to pick up one or two more questions. Okay, here's a good question. Is American tourism interested in all-in-one internet platform to book services in real time in 360 degrees about Italy, although you could be saying Spain or any other? I think so, yes. As I said, you can look across the whole market today and say there's a market for almost anything. So, yes, don't underestimate that either. And what is the best asset that US tour operators are looking for from their potential partners in Europe? I think it's responsiveness. Today you have to be really quick. You need to get back to people and be able to respond when they ask you a question, and come up with good information, solid information that can be very quickly translated into a product and provided to customers, because things happen so quickly today. There's a 24/7 society, isn't it? And we all know that, and that's the same for customers. Their demands are very high. So I think the one best asset is being able to get back quickly, and it's service. You can't survive today if you don't have great service when you're dealing with your business partners, B2B, to C eventually, of course. And last question, I think probably here is, could you tell us all trip needs, for example, breakfast needs, accommodation? frankly, people will sometimes take a product that's very bare bones, and we've seen that with Airbnb growth and so on, where they then do everything themselves. But yes, I mean, people need everything about a product in one way or another, and if you don't provide it, then they'll do it themselves. So maximum flexibility, think out of the box, and you can probably find a little niche for your product no matter how big you are. You can be very small and still find opportunities to market. I'm just checking with our administrators if there is anything else that we'd like to pop in.
Respond to any on email.
Yes, just to remind everybody, we're not going away here. We are going to continue to answer all the questions that have been submitted. I can see a few more still popping up. I see a question now about the potential of the Balkan region, and there's another one about the potential of Norway. Guys, I can tell you the Balkans is massive for the US market, as is Norway and Scandinavia generally. People have moved well beyond just Central Europe and are looking to wider areas as well, whether it be Croatia or whether it be right into Romania or other places in Europe. Right across Europe now, people are looking for new products and new ideas. So there's opportunities for everybody. We'll follow up via email on any of the questions that have not been answered. I do apologise if some of you lost sound, although that's usually a streaming issue somewhere down the line. We apologise for that. When we produce this as a play it again movie, which you will be able to see very shortly, you'll see video also on the question section. We just cut it because of the streaming issues that some of you were having. That's it then. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panel. It was great to have them on board, and for some of them for coming in and checking in with us from so far away at such odd time zones. But thank you to them. Thank you to our organisers. Thank you to the European Commission. And we wish you all a very satisfactory 2018. As Terry Dale said, it's going to be a cracking year for Europe from the USA, so let's all make the most of it. Thank you.